Great radio stations across the land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. It's all right there, plus the live video feed. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have this guy on. We haven't had him on before. His name is Nathaniel Stuart, and you're a correspondent for campusreform.org over at Stanford, right?
Yes, I am.
Nathaniel, good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It's really good to have you. Now, I need to let people know, we had to try to frame the shot because that's a whole hell of a lot of hair. I was thinking about combing mine straight up. Man, that's amazing.
I can't cut it right now. Everything's closed. My brother's using my barber, and he's on the other side of the country.
I mean, you couldn't get like clippers and just like I got to be honest. I took clippers and I did over my ears a little bit about 2 weeks ago. It looked horrible. So maybe don't do the clippers. I think that's probably a bad move. So
I'm supposed to get married in a couple of weeks, and my fiance doesn't want me to use the clippers also because she's afraid I might mess it up.
Well, does she like that the way that it is?
She's okay with it, but she definitely prefers it short. I'm gonna need it short for the ceremony.
Well, how short would you normally have it? I know it's not about your hair, but it's kind of an amazing head of hair. So how do you normally keep it much shorter than that?
Usually about a half inch to an inch.
Nice.
Much shorter. I like to keep it a little closer. It looks a little more professional, but I don't mind the afro look at all. I've worn it for most of my life, actually.
Now, where you are, do they have the hairdressers opening up again? Like where I am, it'll be tomorrow. They'll open up again.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I don't know exactly when. I'm in California right now.
Right.
And I really don't know when they're going to be opening up hairdressers.
Oh, they're never opening them again. No, California's going to be like December. Because Gavin Newsom is that guy. He's like, my hair looks great. I'm not worried about Nathaniel.
I mean, that's probably true. He did say that he wanted the new normal to be wearing masks in restaurants.
Right.
So.
What is that? I mean, he literally said that. He wants there to be a new normal, like forever. We shouldn't shake hands. We should all wear masks. Very, very odd. All right, Nathaniel, I appreciate you. Make sure you go to campusreform.org every day. Check out the great reporting by these young journalists who put the mainstream media to shame every single day. How are you doing your classes? Is it online for you? Have you gone to a class in the past 2 months?
Actually, I just took a midterm like 5 minutes ago. So, yes, I am.
In a class?
Yes, online.
Okay, right. Online. Right. So,
yeah.
You haven't physically gone into a class, though, right?
No, I wish. I'm sitting on my bed, at a desk, at a random table, laying in the grass. It's actually kind of fantastic.
So you miss the everyday stuff. A lot of people prefer doing it online.
I like doing it online, but I really miss my friends. This is going to be my senior spring. I'm supposed to graduate in June. Now all of that's up in the air. I was supposed to get married in June, too. Now we're trying to figure out how to do that. So it's been kind of wild.
Would it be in California, the wedding? Is that where it's planned?
We were planning it for California, but Gavin Newsom hasn't even mentioned when weddings come into his plan. So
come to Texas. We'll get you married here in Texas. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
That's the beauty of federalism. We could just go to a different state. Exactly
right. And well, he's really taking advantage of his 10th Amendment, that's for sure. It is, again, Nathaniel Stuart, first time we've had him on. Let's get into some of these stories. GOP lawmakers are probing Chinese efforts to infiltrate U.S. colleges. A lot of people would say this is xenophobic to even say it. It's not happening. This is crazy. You just hate the Chinese. Well, the truth of the matter is, Nathaniel, they really are infiltrating our college system on purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually a really important story to look at. It's important also to avoid the xenophobia, specifically because when we are xenophobic, what we're doing is helping the Chinese Communist Party.
Right.
A 2019 Stanford Daily article actually just talked about this, how Chinese students at Stanford are even nervous about speaking about the Chinese government in classes, at events, among their friends, because they don't know what peers are going to report them. We shouldn't be helping them. We shouldn't be making it harder for Chinese students, whether they're Chinese American or Chinese nationals, to exist and to enjoy the rights of free speech that we as Americans have on campus. But at the same time, it's really important that we don't allow the Chinese government to gain a foothold and understand all of the research that we've been paying for, that we've been doing, and that we've been just enjoying because of the greatness of our country.
Well, it's interesting because I call it the Chinese flu. It's certainly the CCP has been horrible about the reporting of what happened in Wuhan. The doctors and scientists who wanted us to all know about this, to warn us, are either dead or disappeared. Yet I've got a Chinese daughter. I went to China and adopted her. So it's not about the Chinese people. It never has been. This is about that government trying to dominate, and the way you dominate is you infiltrate with what you see as your communist culture. And like we've got these Chinese, what do they call? They're not institutions, but there are places of learning all over the place. Exactly right. The Confucius Institutes. This is a real thing, being backed by the CCP to change our opinion on that way of life. So this isn't about the Chinese people. Are your contemporaries really giving Chinese people a hard time simply because they're Chinese?
Not that I've seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened once in a while. But I really do think it's a really small problem, and I think that it's worth trying to pay attention to prevent, but at the same time understanding that this is actually a threat. The Soviet Union already used this against us. They understood that the today's professor of international relations could be tomorrow's assistant secretary of state, could be the next undersecretary. And that's a really important thing to realize. And at Stanford, the Chinese government has already attempted a couple times to pressure the university for receiving funding from them. Stanford has a Confucius Institute. And at their Confucius Institute, they have one endowed chair by the Chinese government. It's paid for actually by the Hanban, which is the education arm of the party, and by Peking University, as well as Chinese classes. And the Senate Committee, I think, on Investigations, the Subcommittee on Investigations, did say that this was particularly a soft power move by the Chinese to try to make the public opinion in America more favorable towards them. But Stanford has actually in the past stood up against the Chinese government. And I think it's important to understand that these private entities in America are not being un-American. They actually are trying to still work with us and still trying to prevent our interests. And it's also in the university's best interest to keep a foreign power from undermining them. I mean, like the Chinese government actually hacked Stanford. I think it was back in 2011 or 2012, and got all of their student records and required us to put in a whole bunch of new ways of making sure that we could keep our data secure. And at first, the funding that is used to fund this Confucius Institute came with caveats. They wanted Stanford to never talk about Tibet, and they wanted Stanford to put in place a social sciences teacher or professor at the university endowed by the Chinese government. And Stanford said no to both of them. And I think that's something that is great, should be celebrated, and we should be looking for those examples in this probe, as well as at the places where people are making mistakes.
And this is what the CCP does. They bring a bunch of money. Like they've taken over a huge portion of northern Italy just by saying, we'll rebuild your port, but we're basically going to own the area. So there's like a little China now in the northern part of Italy, and some reports say that's why coronavirus was so bad in Italy, because there's a big illegal immigration trade there now. It is Nathaniel Stuart from Stanford University. Really appreciate the time. Student governments are still getting away with denying conservative groups based on ideology. I thought that we were moving past this because people like you are highlighting that these universities are doing it. We're still doing it?
Well, I think the thing is, the people who are in universities are really disconnected from regular people, everyday people. I mean, at our university, it's the bureaucrats that are making the decisions. I mean, really, at our university, it's bureaucrats that are making the decisions. The bureaucrats that I've worked with at Stanford, when we were trying to get our TPUSA chapter approved, which was denied and then eventually approved, thought that most of the Stanford campus was full of activists, was full of people who were very involved in campus politics, and in reality, it's a small group of students. And that tends to be the case. There's a small group of students who are drastically more offended than the average population. And what TPUSA chapters bring is another perspective. And what I found leading one at Stanford is that people actually really enjoy the ability to come and have conversations with us. Because most of the time when people make demonstrations on campuses, either on the right or on the left, they're trying to make a point and they're not interested in listening. But the TPUSA model really is about bringing awareness, bringing attention to situations around the country and to politics, and allowing conservatives to have conversations. And without that, a lot of conservatives feel like they can't have conversations because while there's a few people on campus that are very interested in activism, a large group of people very much believe the lies that those people sell them. And so I think it's very important that organizations like this continue to fight and continue to stand up and say, we would like to have a place to have a conversation on this campus. They're not asking to have an opportunity to bring up disruption or to cause problems like the student governments and the bureaucracies that many of these universities claim. But in actuality, a lot of TPUSA chapters are just trying to have a conversation. And I think that's something that's really important. And what you're doing there is you're punishing the students who are in the middle, who haven't yet figured out exactly what they want to believe, who want to explore politics, and you're making politics even more difficult for them to approach.
Are they punishing them, or are they indoctrinating them? See, the people who are in the middle have only gotten the left indoctrination. So if you only hear one side, if you bring in a TPUSA or a campusreform.org or a Joe Pags, and you actually hear the other side, now you get to balance it and decide which side you want to go to. If there is no other side, then the indoctrinators win. That's the game here. It's not about TPUSA is bad, or Nathaniel is bad, or Joe's bad, or Charlie Kirk is bad, or Cabot Phillips. This is about not wanting to inform both sides. Like when Cabot went out with a camera and said, hey, do you believe in socialism? Every student said, absolutely. And then he said, okay, you're getting an A, I'm getting an F. Can we both just get a C? And they went, well, hell no, I worked for that. So people don't really understand that there's another side, a dark side of socialism. It isn't what you think it is. So very good points made. Hopefully the students will see something like this between you and me and understand there is another world out there that they haven't been exposed to.
And I think this case at Worcester State University is a really egregious one, specifically because it's the student body. And what you're talking about indoctrination, I think indoctrination and punishment are one and the same because as
Okay.
Americans we believe in free thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really a big problem when you allow people who are now indoctrinated to continue these processes of controlling who gets to speak on a campus. Because what you're doing is you're restricting things more and more. And in this situation, they were so citing people like the Southern Poverty Law Center or the Anti-Defamation League who have clear biases, and accusing this TPUSA chapter of being racist. And as a member of TPUSA, as a founder of a TPUSA chapter, I can affirm to you that TPUSA as an organization is not racist. And I think every
not.
political group can have maybe one or two racists that are a part of it. I've never run into a single one. I've never seen a single thing that has been racist.
Well, the thing you have to understand,
every one of us is non-white. Every single one of us.
These are the same people that oftentimes will say Ben Shapiro is anti-Semitic. So this is how dumb they are. But they also believe that the audience that they're saying it to will just buy it because they said it. And I'm glad that, again, you're raising your voice. And I would guess that if it were a racist organization, you wouldn't be in it. And I, because I don't have a racist, a molecule in my body, would not support it. It is. Go ahead.
Yeah. I would love the ability, if the left would finally allow us to have it, to be black and to dare to be conservative.
No.
That's something that I've been fighting for.
Never going to happen.
I would love to be able to go into a place and share my political opinions without being called an Uncle Tom I was threatened. Someone threatened to lynch me at Stanford because I was voting for President Trump in 2016. I think that these are really serious things that are being ignored on our college campuses.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There is actual racism that is being perpetuated by this indoctrination.
Well, think about it. Somebody on the left threatened to lynch you. That actually makes sense because, of course, we know segregation, slavery, lynchings, Jim Crow. These were all leftist movements. These were all done by Democrats. And in this day and age, we pretend like the conservatives did it. That isn't what happened. So I'm not surprised. I'm sickened that was said to you, but I'm not surprised that somebody was mad at you for being conservative. By the way, black people and Hispanic people in this country, minorities, have always been conservative. They've always had the same family values as conservatives have. They've always been very religious. They believe in the family unit. They're against abortion. So pretending that all blacks are Democrats is a ruse, and it's a ruse that's worked for way too long. Nathaniel, I could talk to you forever, man. I've got one more quick one. Give me about 30 seconds, if you don't mind, on this $27 billion endowment at Stanford and what they're going to do with the coronavirus money, whether they're going to take it or not.
I think this is a great thing that Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton ended up doing. Harvard after some pressure from President Trump, but the other universities on their own, they decided to not receive the federal coronavirus funding that they don't need. I mean, the student body at Stanford was asking for Stanford to fund low-income students and to fund university workers. The university's already been doing that. I'm a low-income student, and they're helping me to settle into the place where I'm living now. They're helping to pay for food costs. All of those things are covered. And it's not making the university come into any kind of threat of insolvency. But if you look at other universities, a lot smaller colleges around the country, I can understand why it would be necessary for them to receive federal aid. And I think this is a really big lesson that we can learn. Stanford has a $27.7 billion endowment.
I thought that was a mistake. I thought that was a misprint. It's billion, not million.
It's billion. I mean, Harvard's is 40 billion. It's a lot bigger.
Wow.
But I think that it's really important to remember that just because the government offers us something does not mean we have to receive it. And I think this is something that, as an American conservative, I'm very proud of. Just because I think that we are not saying that we are not entitled to something does not stop at when the government offers to us.
Agreed.
It can also stop when we decide to refuse it.
I could not agree more. Man, what a smart guy. I hope that we'll have you on many more times. I appreciate you. It's Nathaniel Stuart. Nathaniel, do you have a Twitter?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, you might want to get into the 2020s, my man. I like to spread the Twitter. I mean, but people can go and see your great reporting from Stanford over there at campusreform.org. They do great reporting every day. I really like how you speak about these very, very important issues. Let's have you on again.
Thank you.
All right, brother. We're back after this at the Joe Pags Show. Stay right here.